Good evening and welcome to Shattercast, another week, another video of all things value with video, with me, Alex Lowe, and Nathan Nicholson, where we're going to talk this week about creating compelling sales stories for your products and services. So we spoke about previous weeks about the different stages of content and how you can move through those stages from visibility to authority to conversion. This week, we're going to lean more into the conversion side of content and how you can use that to maximize the impact that you can have on your business and your brand. So first of all, I'm going to throw over to Alex. Alex, what is your thoughts when it comes to creating a compelling story for your business and brand?
Well, I think when we think of story, because obviously like we talk about story a lot and it has a lot of different uses, but every single business needs a compelling sales story. So like often when we're working with business owners, as you know, like we talk about visibility, authority and conversion. But even before we start coming up with titles, we'll be like, okay, so tell me about your business. Who do you serve? What do you do? And that's basically a cue for a sales story. But it's amazing how many times business owners, they struggle to answer those basic questions. They struggle to be very compelling and clear and precise with exactly what they do. And if you think about it, if you're going to market, if you're selling stuff, if you're running a business, and you can't articulate very clearly exactly what you do and in a way that attracts your ideal audience, you're sort of dead in the water right from the start. Before you even start to sort of amplify any other types of content or any other type of stuff out there, you need to be able to do that, because that's just going to help you to talk to the right kind of people and to obviously convert and to even get attention from the kind of people that you want to speak about. So I thought, well, it's probably a good idea to kind of go into what we actually mean by a compelling sales story, because obviously there are certain things that means, certain things that certain mistakes that people commonly make. So we can dive into that. But I think just in terms of why this is important, it's the number one mistake I see again and again and again. The business owners it doesn't take long to actually come up with a sales story. I mean, most people watching this will probably go away with a good idea of what their sales story is, but it's absolutely critical.
So what would you say? What would you say, Nathan, is a point to go into then? What's your views on creating a compelling story?
So I think that actually more often than not, as Alex says, businesses and business owners fail to be able to articulate who that is and what that is and who their ideal clients are, what problems they actually solve. But the value of having a compelling sales story is that it can be used across the business. If you can articulate that and write that down and document that, then any onboarding of new salespeople that you bring on will have access to that. It will then cascade down to your marketing or across to your marketing or whatever other departments need access to that, even if that is someone that's designing logos. They would have an understanding of who your ideal client is, your brand structure, who you're really targeting and what problem you actually solve for them. And I think more often than not it's overlooked the value and the power of having that, especially when you're trying to build teams and things like that. It helps with just so many different areas, from, as I say, looking at marketing as a whole, but it also enables you to be able to sell effectively.
Well, if we dive into it for a second, because I'm just thinking about the copywriter part of my brain, that there's different elements of a compelling sales story. I mean, there isn't like one exact formula, there's different formulas, but some of the things that you tend to need to hit on are like, what is the problem you solve? What are the problems you solve? What are the benefits of what you offer? That doesn't mean what you offer. It means how is somebody's life transformed after they use your service, after they use your product? Like, what's the benefit? And then somewhere to throw in like a differentiator, like why you? Because a lot of times people will talk, but they won't give people the context of exactly like who they're talking about. So some common structures are things like, we help X to Y so they can Z, or sometimes like X seek us out when they have a certain problem. Agency owners often come to us when they are struggling with, their website looking bad, no conversions, and we help them to, create an amazing website so they can attract the clients they want. And like, that's a sentence or two sentences. That's a quick little like, boom, that's a pitch. And sometimes throwing in a differentiator. Oh, and also unlike our competitors, we also do, or we do it in a way that is X. So often if you can try and just weave all those elements into a quick story, and Joe, as you know, with video, like if you actually, even though you can do that in the sentence, if you take, say, 3-5 minutes to actually put that narrative into a video and you stick that on your website or you link to that, that's a compelling narrative. That tells people exactly who you are, what you do. And quite often the mistakes people make when they're coming up with a story is they'll make it all about them. Oh, well, we were founded in 1927, and we are the award-winning, and we. And it's like, who cares? What do you do for me? Or they'll be too clever. They'll start describing all of the different amazing features and benefits, things of their business. It's like, yeah, but what does that mean to me? So make it simple, make it about the person, and don't make it boring. Make it make it interesting, fun, attention grabbing.
I was going to say the 4 things that we look at really is who you are, who you serve, and who you help with ... and then your offering and differentiator. Those 4 or 5 key points really are those. If you're going to take anything away from watching this, I think those 5 things for me are the key to making a compelling story. As you just said, Alex, I think it just empowers everybody to actually be on the same page and have clear defined who, what, where, when, and how. And if you've got that, then you're at least having a conversation where you're helping somebody. And from a sales point of view, if you can identify the problems that you're solving and helping people with, it makes your job a hell of a lot easier.
Nathan, because the thing about you is, guys, obviously you've been in sales teams, you've run them, and one of the things I've seen when I come in as Mr. Marketer coming into a team is that if you have a bunch of different salespeople, actually it's an interesting test. If you ask different people in the company, oh, by the way, what do you guys sell? And you get like 5 different answers from 5 different people, and then you go to the salespeople that are being paid to actually pitch, and you go, oh, by the way, what do you sell? And they go like, oh, where's my pitch notes? They go into or they go into trying to explain it, but they miss out the first 5 steps. And then you're like, hang on a second, but why is that important? Why do I even care? So I think one of the things is, as you kind of hinted at there, Nate, is like, if you're running a company that like you have you have a team, or you have particularly salespeople, they've all literally got to be on the same page, because otherwise, if you listen in for a day to what they're actually saying to people or selling, it could be completely different. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a business. I mean, I certainly have, where like I've been speaking to people who've just been sold, and I'm helping to onboard them into a program. And what they seem to be coming in, the expectation they're coming in with is totally different to what we actually deliver. And I realize, oh, the salesperson has been improvising. They've been riffing, but what the client is actually going to get, particularly in the onboarding when they come in, is different. And it's like, if you have a big misalignment between sales and operations, or if everyone's got a different sales story, it's so ineffective. But this is such a common problem I see over and over and over again.
Yeah, me too.
It's really interesting to think about it in the sense of, usually when you talk to people about content, you talk to people about storytelling, you talk to people about having your brand story, they again think about it as an external thing. What am I telling the world? Very few people actually go, actually, what am I telling my team? So that's a really nice spin on it to say, actually, your brand story isn't just an external. It's not a promotional tool. It's everything that your brand encompasses and everything that it's about, the backstory, how you want it to feel, who you want to talk to, which is, I think it's a bit of a refreshing look on it. And again, something you mentioned earlier, Alex, was that the mistakes that people go into talking too much about themselves. I've had so many awkward conversations with people where the first thing to do is, hi, this is me, this is what I've done, this is my backstory. And innocently, because they think it's giving them self-credibility. And that used to work. Whereas now people want to get straight into the content. I say it all the time. Viewers of content are selfish. Rightly so. You're selfish. I'm selfish as a viewer. You want to get into it, and you want to know the bit that you're looking for, whether that's education, whether it's tips, techniques, or whatever for the problem you're trying to solve, or whether it's just entertainment. Most of us will be leaning on the side of tips and hints and techniques and stuff. So you want to get straight into that content. And until you've built that trust and rapport and relationship with the person you're viewing, they honestly just don't care who you are, because you haven't earned that yet. And that's a key thing, is you've got to earn it. And brand story can really help with that. That's where your credibility can come in a non-egotistical way, I would have thought. What other sort of mistakes do you think people make, Al, when they come to creating their brand story and putting that sort of message out there?
I mean, I think that, you just touched on it, and we'll go a bit deeper into it, because I think that self-other focus is so big and pervasive that probably is the main one. Because if you look at somebody's website, brochure, listening to their sales calls, any kind of client-facing stuff, and you look at like the language of me versus you, whether it's whatever it is, a pitch deck, usually people will always go off about like us. It will always be me, internal centered language. And in a sense, it makes sense, because you're like, well, you know, I've got experience, I've won awards, I've done this, and my clients will probably feel reassured that we're such a good business. It's like, maybe, but not right away. Like maybe after a certain while, you can go, oh, by the way, that's why we're award winning, or that's why we've been serving our community for 20 years. And if you put it in that context, they'll be like, okay, but if you start off there, it's like sitting down to a date and be like, here's 5 reasons I'm amazing, and you're so lucky to be here. It's like, you don't start off with that. You start off with, hey, so tell me about you. But if you understand your prospects, and Nathan, I know you go into this a lot, it's like, if it's from a sales perspective, you've got to like find out what is in their head so you can speak about what's important to them, and not be opening up with like me. There's just such a common mistake.
Yeah, you hear it all the time on sales calls when they're making outbound sales calls, and they say, "Hi, it's Nathan calling from ABC company," and you're like, "Why are you going into kind of the whole who you are, what you represent?" What you actually want to go into is, "Hi, it's Nathan calling from Luna Sales Consultancy. We help entrepreneurs, business owners with XYZ problems," rather than it just being generic. And it differentiates you, and you can go into that with, can I have 30 seconds, or whatever spin you want to take thereafter. And you can test different ways of doing that, but your opener should always be about what you help them with, rather than being self-centered around who you are, why you're amazing, and why they should actually give you the time of day, because they're just going to say, I haven't got time, or give you some other excuse to get off the phone.
Understanding that customer journey, obviously it's something we talk about a lot. Understanding the customer journey is will really help you on knowing what type of content, what bit of the story you can throw at them, how deep in the story you can go with them. Like you say, if it's very early on the journey, if it's a cold prospect, they're not going to watch or listen to 5 minutes, 10 minutes of you talking about your brand story. They're not invested enough yet. So there's different stages you've got to take them down. We come back to the visibility, authority, conversion piece, that you can sort of deploy different bits of content to them at different points to build on that trust and get them to the point of conversion, which is the ultimate goal. And then from your sales perspective, Nate, if that's deployed properly, how much easier does that make your job?
Yeah, much easier. I mean, one of the things that I do often is look at at getting their attention, engagement, conversion, and ascension. So it's looking at that whole journey, and each one of those, especially from a video point of view, Joe, you'll know this. We talk about visibility, authority, and conversion, but from a sales point of view, what you want to get is their attention to start off with. So how do you get that retention within the first 30 seconds of a call, or online videos, or content? It's about, they don't know you at this point. They don't know that they have a problem at this point necessarily. So you've got to grab their attention with a hook. And then you go into engagement. So now they know who you are. And so this is where you have the follow-up calls, perhaps, or a discovery call, where you've arranged to have a discovery call. And that's where your engagement piece really comes to life, because that's where they go, I know who you are, I know what you do, I know what you solve, or I know a little bit or enough to engage in a conversation or get in touch with you. And then you have the conversion conversation, i.e. a discovery call, put them into a training, online webinar, something that is a conversion event. So you have your attention, your engagement, then your conversion event. And then what most people forget about is, once they're converted, they're still clients, but they are also still customers. And then you have you can say use your retargeting and your next step on the ladder. So they may have bought the first product, but what's the next thing that we can sell to them? Is there a different product? Or is there a different solution that takes them a bit further along the train tracks? So it's not just about retention at that point, but those are the 4 key stages, really: attention, engagement, and then conversion and ascension.
Well, it also, I think it speaks to emotion as well in marketing, because quite often when you have a sales journey like that, you often want to like have emotion high on the front and on the end, and then emotion slightly lower and logic up in the middle. Because whether it's a marketing journey or a sales call, is like they buy because of emotional reasons, and then they justify with logic. So like right on the front end with social media, cold open hooks or whatever, you often want to try and get right into emotion, right into the pain, right into the emotional benefit, because that's what gets people's attention. Then in the middle of the journey, like when they're in the email autoresponder and they're thinking, okay, hang on, let's compare this option to other options, or let's see who they've worked with, or and the logic starts to take over. That's when you can show them like, oh, have a look at our case studies, have a look at the stats on like how we help people, come to this training. Like you can talk to that side. And then when they go, okay, I'm sold. And then as you said, Nathan, like once they buy, well, then you also want to hit emotion, because you want to hit the loyalty and you've made a great decision and you're working with a great company. So the message is also how emotional the message is. Because the same with the sales call, and if you have to go into the emotion first, then once they've hit the emotional point and they're like, yeah, I need to change, something needs to change, then you can kind of get them to justify logically. Okay, so do you feel this would be a good fit? Why do you think that? And then they have to start justifying it. But if you don't have the emotion to start, you're not actually going to get anywhere. And nothing helps with a build emotion as much as video when it's done well, which is why I think it's such a powerful sales tool, basically, as long as you do it, as we just said, in the right order at the right time, and you're not just kind of throwing sales videos at people.
Sales is emotional. I always do with clients, and I say, right, what were the last 3 things that you purchased? And I guarantee every one of those had an emotional attachment, whether it was to a brand, whether Sonos speakers, Apple phones, products, laptops, whatever. I guarantee the last 3 things, 9 times out of 10, was an emotional purchase rather than a well thought out, is this the best, cheapest, whatever. It wasn't. It was because they were emotionally invested in whatever it was, the last 3 things they purchased.
And like I say, video has a way of moving people that other mediums just don't have. I mean, the common thing is a picture speaks 1,000 words, but a video times that by 100,000, because it is just an ongoing motion of still images, which you pair it with audio. Audio makes up 80-90% of any video production, because that helps you convey a story. So it is a concoction of different things that you can help convey a message in a really emotional way and really begin to shift and move people in a way that you can't do that with an image. You can't do that with text. Very difficult to do that with just audio alone. But piece the lot together and you can really, really start to sort of shift people. So when it comes to actually taking that story and dissecting it into different elements, to use at different points during the customer journey, Al, what would that look like? So if you can speak to me about that, how would you dissect that up, and how would you implement it into different parts of that journey, right from being a cold prospect all the way through to a warm lead?
I mean, like as I say, you can make a sales story just like one sentence. You should be able to sum it up that simply. But if you take the things that are inside it, so like we were saying before, the who it's for, the what problems you solve, the why people choose you, or what the benefits are, and what makes you different. If you take just those 4 elements, for example, well, obviously you can fit that into a quick little elevator pitch, but also those are going to be key blocks of your marketing message. So they're going to be the key things you want to hit in, say, an email sequence, in a webinar, if you were doing a keynote on stage, if you were networking, you're going to want to hit those elements. And oftentimes, like, so as we were saying before, on your front end stuff, say with social media, it's more emotional. So you're probably going to want to be talking about more the pains you solve, the benefits, the emotional stuff. And then when you get a little bit more into, say, the funnel, like say emails or something like that, you can take your time to kind of spell it out. Hey, so we often get asked, what makes us different, or, why should we use your product as opposed to the other product? Fantastic question. Here's 4 reasons. And you can go a little bit more into like, or here's what, well, it doesn't matter what I say. Here's what our clients say, and turn the spotlight onto them and highlight case studies or testimonials. So each of those 4 or 5 elements of that you can take into that story, even though you should be able to pitch it very quickly and have anyone on your team use it, you can turn each one of those into multiple sales material. You can make a whole webinar out of just those things. You could make each a 5-minute video, and then basically it's almost like pick a mix, because you can just use them all for your marketing mix whenever you need to. And even say if you've got a brochure or a website page, there should be a section about each of those things, a section about the who, Does it say right at the top of your brochure or sales page this is for? Does it say what the problems are you solve? Does it say what people will get emotionally from working with you? How will you transform your life? How will using your product or service make them better in some way, feel better, have more status, whatever it is that it gets them? Why should they trust you, and why you as opposed to your competitors? Because if you ask somebody like, why should I use you rather your competitors, they'll be like, well, because we're nice people, we have great customer service, blah blah. We've been going 20 years. If you ask the competitor, they're not going to say, actually, we're rubbish and we haven't been going very long. No, they're going to say exactly the same things. So you want to make sure that your differentiators actually are different and not just, I don't know if you'd agree with that, Nath, but that's what I find is like, make it actually be different.
More often than not, people find it very difficult to say, why am I so unique? What makes me different? I think that's the challenge, is that more often than not, they're like, I don't really know why I'm different. And as you said before, you'll go into a team and ask everybody, and everybody will give you a different answer. There's no kind of uniform approach across a business, generally speaking.
And I think there's a key that I've taken away from that as well, which is, and again, it's somewhere I used to struggle a bit when I'd hear things about, tell your brand story. Your brand story isn't one piece of content. It's not just, I'm going to make one 5 to 10 minute video. That is my entire brand story, and it's going to speak to everybody. Because actually, that's not very effective at all. Like I say, if you understand that customer journey, if you understand who your market is, and you bring elements of your brand story into the different pieces of content at different times during that journey, that can be a hell of a lot more effective than trying to throw everything at everybody at the same time. Because what's the old saying, that if you give everybody everything, nobody gets nothing, something like that, something along those sort of lines. Yeah, the wicked. That's it from now on. We'll own that one. Hashtag it and everything. But essentially, yeah, you want to be, if the more specific you can be. In business, we're told this a lot, and still, I think a lot of people don't understand why. But if you niche down, and it's not to say that you should have one niche, but if you niche down, then you can really start to understand that person that you're talking to, the pain points they've got, and the problems that you can help solve. And then you can speak to that person. And especially as they're coming into the journey, and Nath, I imagine you've had some experience with this, is as a business that you're working with, maybe they've got multiple niches. So they've got different target markets who might not be the same. But you've got a pocket full of different elements that you can throw at them depending on who they are, depending on the industry they're in, and depending on the problem you're solving.
Yeah, you do the same exercise for each of those niches, because it might have variants of this product's for this particular type of client, but this different product suits the polar opposite of this particular client. And actually doing the same exercise for each of those niches, and it just ensures that everybody's on the same page. You never really get stuck when you're having a conversation with somebody, because you know what the sales story is. You know what your differentiators are. You know what your unique selling points are. You know what problems you solve and why you solve them and how you solve them, what the root causes of those problems are. So when you've actually gone through that process with each of those different niches, you will have an answer for each of those sections, and it can be used throughout the sales journey, not just at the beginning where you're having cold calls or nurturing. It can be used throughout, and I think that's the beauty of it, is that you can use it throughout the whole of your sales journey, and your business as a whole.
And we've had a few clients as well where, which is again is another really fascinating way to think about it, where actually the problem has been the same, the solution has been the same, but the person you're talking to is completely different. So the content itself might be near damn identical, but you have to put a different spin on it. You have to use maybe different language in it, or talk to a different market, or use their jargon, even though it is the same content, same solution, same outcome, because you can have that impact.
That's a mistake that a lot of salespeople that I speak to do, is that they assume that because it's the same problem, the same root cause, it's the same outcome. But actually, if you've documented all of the possible root causes and the possible solutions, it may be a slightly different tweak on the solution. But if you're assuming that just because the last person I spoke to had the same problem, they're going to want the same solution, it doesn't necessarily marry. So having all of these things that are a bullet pointed out in a sales story, a document of some description, it just gives you confidence. When you've got confidence as a salesperson, you're flying. And I think that's another really underestimated and overlooked piece of the puzzle, really.
I mean, one thing I love about us is like we talk enough and we understand enough about what we're doing that we've got, and I think it's been a massive thing for us. End of last year is we got so much clarity on who we want to talk to, how we want to talk to them, the problems that we solve, and even doing these lives. We're not expecting hundreds of millions of views. It's not that's not the purpose. That's not the metrics that we're following. But we are already getting people, which has surprised me a bit, saying that, oh, is there going to be a replay? Is there somewhere where they can go and watch it? What sort of topics they want us talking about, which has been refreshing compared to the messaging we had before, which just didn't seem to be landing because I was assuming what people would want to know, or I was picking the wrong barriers, which are a bit later down the line. Whereas when we actually sat down and we did all these sort of things and we refined, okay, what's the main problems that they've got? What's the main things that they want to tackle? What's the core things that they want to get out of it? What are the benefits that they want? It allowed us to dive deeper now into our messaging and understand, right, okay, so actually what I was speaking about before wasn't really as effective because actually that was a problem they didn't know they had and it comes later down the line. Whereas now what we can speak about is we can speak to grab the attention, to come back to what you're saying earlier, Nath. We grab their attention with some of the things we're speaking about, whether it's a problem with their visibility, whether it's a problem with their authority and their positioning in their space, or whether it's a problem with their conversion and getting people across the line and helping to grow their business ultimately. That's grabbing their attention. Things like this then help position us as an authority figure or people with experience and bringing our ideas and our experiences together to be able to display them and give value out. And again, everything has to be client focused or people focused. Give value. We're not expecting to sell everybody on the back end, but the idea for us is visibility, authority. And then when it leads into those conversations, then it's a natural progression to lead towards a conversion.
From a copy perspective, it's always like, I'm always saying, well, where do clients say that? Like, because people often use language and I'm like, have you ever heard a client say that? And they'll be like, well, no. So I'll be like, well, why are you saying it then? Because there's an old copy thing, which is like, you need to write the stuff that's going on in your prospect's head. So the more time you actually listen to them, hear them, spend time with your dream prospects, what language are they using? How do they describe their problem? Do they even describe it? Because there's a difference between wants and needs, right? Where they have something they want, and there's an expert we can go, well, that's what they need, but they don't know that. So if you start selling it or talking to them about it, it's not going to map across their world. They know what they want, but so that's often the language we have to use in sales copy, in videos, in brochures, is their particular way of phrasing it. Because there's a big difference between, like language, for example, there's a big difference between a speedy automobile and a fast car. Like if you come in looking for a fast car and I'm talking about a speedy automobile, you're going to be like, it just doesn't match what I'm looking for. And it's the same thing, but the language, if it's not their language, and this is what I was talking about before with like jargon, a lot of people in industries, particularly jargon heavy industries, they use the jargon. And the person is not, the person is not lying like at night all frustrated and worried because like, oh, I don't have an XYZ widget, Bob. No. They're going, oh my goodness, I've got to find a way to, get more leads. I've got to find a way to, lose this weight, improve my relationship, whatever it is. But try and focus on the language that's actually going on in their heads that they're worried about, and not the language that sounds more professional.
I mean, I love that. I don't think I've ever heard anybody ever mention a speedy automobile, but I love the idea that you can walk into a showroom and somebody would say that to you. But I think that's a really important point. And actually, that's a point that I really had to let go of. I'm a creative, so I like to come up with new things. And even when doing Shatter Media, calling this Shattercast and playing around with some of these ideas, is if you're in that space where you've got those sort of things going on, then it's important to remember that actually those words don't mean anything to anybody else. So you still have to talk a language that they can understand. So for me, I can say shatter content all day long, but then the first question I'm going to get is, what the hell is shatter content?
Something Alex says all the time is, so what? Do the so what test. What's it matter? You know what? I love it.
Talk us through that real quick, Al, if you don't mind. So what? The so what test? What's that?
Well, it's an old copy thing, but like you can use it for anything. You read copy or you read something or listen to something and you just go, well, so what? Like, who cares? So like, oh, we have the best widgets in the world. Well, so what? Who cares? And then usually the language that you use to find out why you should care, the benefits is like, so you can, or which means that. So we do X, which means that, so you can. So it's like, we, so even if we talk about, well, we help businesses create better videos. Well, who cares? Well, so they can get more visible, get more clients, get more leads, make more sales. Oh, which means that they can make more money in less time and have a better business. Oh, well, that's what they actually care about. So it's like you often have to tease out. I know, Nathan, like often a sales formula or a copy formula I like, but you use it in sales as well, is like, how problem, well, I solution, which means that. Because like if you don't give them a problem to latch onto, well, how some business owners really struggle to come up with consistent videos for social media? Yeah. Well, we help them create, a quarter's worth of content in one day so that they can dominate social media with their message and not have to worry about creating content. Oh, now I'm speaking the language. But if I just said we do videos, for example, it's a bit of a, well, so what? Like, yeah, and so that's the so what test. So in your business, whenever you're thinking about like a benefit or why what you do is amazing, always run it by the so what test and try and tease out the so you can, which means that. And that's why it comes back to, as you said before, you've got to know your audience because it's what they care about, not what you care about.
And more often than not, it's the so that they can, and it's the result that's being missed out. More often than not, in teams and businesses, it's the result. And the result is what creates that urgency and that aha moment of, that's why I should engage, or that's why I should do the next step, the next logical yes, because it will get me to, yeah, I have that problem. And you relate, it's emotional, going back to what we were talking about earlier, and it all ties in. But yeah, that's the so what test, which I've seen Alex do, and I think it's a really great tool to have in your arsenal.
I'm glad we saved that little nugget till the end, because now we can know who's stuck around.
Well, I like what you just said, Nathan, about aha moments. Because actually, just to pin that for a second, that's what your videos are. That's what your marketing needs to be. It needs to create aha moments. So when you're thinking about your videos, you're not creating a bunch of videos. You're creating a bunch of aha, as in, oh, that's why I've got the problem. Oh, that's why. If you can create aha moments for your audience, that's what gets their attention, engages them, and converts them. So I just wanted to focus on that language because I think that's really what is going on here. You need to create those little moments where, and it's not you telling them necessarily, as in pitching them or spelling it out. Sometimes it's giving them the evidence where they go, aha, oh, I understand now. Oh, okay. So I just wanted to point that out because I think that's a very important thing you just said. Yeah.
And I think that messaging is all about refining as time goes by. And I think one good way to know when you're sort of starting to get those aha moments, because I think we've just started to sort of latch onto, and I keep talking about us after saying it's all about everybody else, but I'm going to do it because I'm proud of it. But one bit of feedback I've been getting lately from a few people, since we've turned our messaging around and we've started being consistent with the messaging that we're putting out, one of the biggest compliments I think we can get is when somebody comes up and talks to us and either mentions a specific video, a specific piece of content, or even just blanket, I really like the new content that you're putting out. And there's been a few occasions where people have said, I felt like you were talking to me. And I was like, brilliant, because that's by design. And that's what we're intending to do. And I think that is the core reason of why understanding your brand message, understanding the customer journey, understanding who the client is, what their pain is, how you can talk to that pain, and how you can tell your story to them, and for them to be able to see those benefits from it, so they have the penny drop and they have those aha moments. And at that point, it doesn't really become a sale; it becomes a conversation of how you move forward. So, on that note, we're over time by 5, so I will call it quits there. So thank you everybody for joining us again on another week on the Shattercast. If you have any questions or if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover, please do comment below or DM any of us at any time, and we would love to take care of them. But for now, we will see you next week.